for the first Write India session at the Times LitFest Delhi 2018. Write India, I assume all of you here know what it is. It is now the world's largest platform for collecting crowdsourced short stories. And we have connected with some of the USP of Write India is that we've connected with some of the leading authors of the country. And every year we keep hoping to do so with more and more authors. And the authors provide inspiration, we give the deadline, and stories pour in. Last year, for season 1, we had more than 25,000 stories coming in. And this year, season 2, we already have quite a few. We have more than half of them already in here at this time. So, in this session, I have a mix of season 1 and season 2 authors. Ravi Subramanian on my right, Ashwin Sanghi, they were both authors for season 1 of Write India. Anand Neelakantan has joined us this year for season 2. So I'm sure all of you, I know all of you love reading, and I'm sure quite a few of you love writing also. And those of you who write, I'm sure know the biggest secret of a writer. And that is that you get such a high from writing that it's like a passion that goes into your veins, and it's difficult to de-addict yourself after that. So once you've written a book, or you've written a short story for Write India, you've actually already reached the pinnacle of creativity. And that is where your satisfaction comes from. After that, name, fame, money, all that is greed and, right? Do you agree with me or not? All that is greed and, hoping for getting more than you really need to. I don't think these guys here are agreeing with me, are you? No. Okay, to agree.
I'm always for greed.
No, you want greed, okay. So, obviously they will not agree because here with me, ladies and gentlemen, are 3 authors who have the cake and eat it too. They write wonderful books, they sell wonderfully, and they rake in the money. They are what you call commercially successful authors and who are proud to say that they are commercial authors. All 3 of them. And why is that so? I mean, I find a lot of authors around who say, I'm not a commercial author, I do write commercial books, but I'm a literary author as well. But I've never heard it from these 3 guys. Is it because all 3 of them come from a business background? Business or corporate background, really, let's say. So Ravi's been a banker, as you all know, with all his banker books. Ashwin comes from a family business and he still works with them. And Anand has been working with the Indian Oil Corporation and still works there, though I don't think on a regular basis. He's an engineer with them. But their celebrityhood has taken them far beyond that. The celebrity that they got by being authors and by being writers. So everybody who's here knows the authors already, so without going into long introductions, I think we should just start off. And my first question is to Ashwin. I want to ask him, why did he skip from business to writing?
Well, Vinita, first of all, I was expecting that you will go in this order, with Ravi first. But so I was not prepared. But anyway, long and short is that for me the writing kick happened actually by chance. I was always a voracious reader, but I wasn't ever a writer. And around 2002-2003, I came across this particular tomb in Kashmir, which struck my fancy, and I was fascinated by it. And that resulted actually in my first book after about 2 years worth of research. So as my good friend Amish loves to say, that you don't go searching for stories, the stories find you. And that's pretty much what happened with me. That story found me. And once that book became commercially successful, then there was really no going back. I think you always need that first impetus to happen, that yes, I can do it. And I can not only write, but I can also make myself a commercial success. And once that happens, then the rest of it is relatively easy.
Does that have anything to do with your business background, the fact that you are a commercial success?
No, I think it had not something, it had everything to do with it. Because the reality is that I would say the Indian publishing industry for the longest time was not really interested in promoting commercial fiction writing by Indian authors. because they had a huge backlist of Western authors, the Sidney Sheldons and the Jeffrey Archers and the Frederick Forsyths of the world. So they really found it unnecessary to be promoting in writers. And I think that the credit for breaking that actually goes to Chetan Bhagat, because for the first time, commercial Indian writing was looked at very seriously. And once that actually happened, then frankly speaking, till then the approach had been that the job of a writer is to write, and then the job of the publisher is to market. The writer is not supposed to be getting his hands dirty with marketing. Whereas today, I would say all the people who are here on the stage, I think they have one common quality, and that quality I will describe in one single Hindi word. It's called besharam. That they don't have the embarrassment of going out there and marketing themselves. And I think that is the fundamental change that happened.
Yeah, like they say today, the real work begins once your book is complete. You have to step out there, or even for movies, you have to step out there and talk about them. As you know, Ashwin writes these thrillers, and you will be happy to know that today itself he's come to know that his latest book, he's doing a series with James Patterson. The latest book, Private Delhi, has made it to the New York Times bestsellers list today. It's at number 4, and that is big news.
Thank you, Vinita. Thanks so much.
Now, Anand, I'm coming to you next because I'm always fascinated by the fact that Anand Neelakantan, he also picked up mythology to write about, but he did not write about the heroes. He writes it's a counter-telling of mythology. He chose to write about the villains. And as he very proudly said, I am Ravan. What is it about the villains that attracts you so much, Anand?
There are a lot of great writers from Valmiki to Tulsidas to Kambar to Hind who have written about Ram. What I am going to do writing about Ram? There was nobody, this Ravan is an orphan, as Amit says. So he found a person who can tell his story. I am his bard, whether it is Ravan or Duryodhana. First thing, I was fascinated by this character. Second thing, I wanted to do something different. It was a commercial decision. It was a commercial decision, and it was a fine line between, it's a very fine line. People can get offended also. So it's a very fine line. So it took almost 6 years for me to come out with the book. But I was not in a hurry.
And it's also very fascinating because, we've grown up always thinking in black and white, and now suddenly there are shades of grey all around because you realize that good is not all good and bad is not all bad. And you chose to pick up the bad, the villains, the ones who were,
they are heroes for me, don't call them villains.
Okay, all right, the villain heroes, the heroes for you, because you see good in them. You see good in those guys, in Ravan and Duryodhana. You have brought out their, you have shown us that these are also guys who have emotions, who also feel pain and who feel good and bad.
See, actually, if you read Valmiki Ramayana or Vyasa's Mahabharata, different versions of it, you find that these people are not villains, they are anti-heroes. In original, only during the Bhakti era, the Bhakti literature, Ram became God and Ravan became the villain. Otherwise, these are hero and anti-hero. It's the same thing. If you see, it's the same circumstances, how they react. How Ram reacts and how Ravan reacts. It's only to show that they have written it. Only during later era, when India started losing the confidence after invasion, that suddenly this concept of black and white came. None of our Puranas are black and white. Gods are not as good as we expect. Demons are not as bad as we expect. There is no clear black and white. There is no God versus Satan in Indian mythology at all. So that's what I was trying to bring back, whatever it is possible.
You made the reading of mythology interesting for us, nevertheless. Coming to Ravi, now yours I think understand why, being a banker, you got into thrillers with the banking background. Maybe you got bored with your job and you wanted to do something different. And then suddenly, the people started calling him the Grisham of banking. And maybe he got tired of that title and he suddenly decided that maybe he should write a romance. And then he wrote this book called The Bestseller She Wrote. And after that, he decided to get into another genre and he got into a whodunit. He brought out a whodunit. Still not satisfied, his next book, which is coming out, is Don't Tell the Governor. which is a bit to do with demonetization, and it is to do with the governor, the RBI governor. What is it that attracts you to different genres?
A couple of things, but before that, just a quick pointer to what Anand had said. He said a lot of people have written about Ram, Valmiki, Kamban, etc., etc. He left out Amish.
When I started, Ravan, Amish had not
Okay. Vinita, I personally think that if an author does not challenge himself and does not experiment in newer genres, I think he's not doing justice to his craft. When I started writing, when I wrote If God Was a Banker, at that point in time, I wrote on a topic which I knew best. I was lazy. I didn't want to do too much of research, so I knew banking, and I wrote about banking. But thereon, I moved into thrillers, and then I moved into a romance. Then I moved into a whodunit, a contemporary thriller, and then now writing a book on the RBI governor and his exploits, a book called Don't Tell the Governor, which comes out next year. But in between all this, I also managed to find time to write a children's book. So my next book is a children's book, which actually comes out next month. It's a book called My First Book of Money, and it's a book which, through stories, tells children about money. And yes, I think authors should experiment. Authors should write new things. Authors should probably constantly challenge themselves. And that's why I also slightly disagree with even Ashwin when he said that the story finds you. I think for me, I have to go out and find the story. I think a story comes to me as a result of hours of intense thought process, distracted driving, walking on the Bandra bandstand, thinking about, oh my God, who do I kill next, and where does the story
Ravi, you
go?
don't drink enough. If you drink whiskey, the stories will find you. I promise you.
I'll tell you a better idea. Make others drink whiskey. They will come and tell you the stories to write.
Yes, I think at times I have been part of this, when Ravi is wondering who kills whom and who's going to be the murderer, and he spent days and days just wondering and deciding after one person after the other ki kisko banai murderer ultimately, and all his friends have kind of heard him worrying about that. In your last book, one of the characters said that there are 6 reasons anybody commits a crime. So we are not getting into those 6 reasons. I want to know 3 reasons why you write.
I can tell you, this is actually one reason why I started writing, and that reason was that I wanted to be remembered. I think all of us have that in us, right? That we want to be remembered after we are gone, and that is the only reason I wrote If God Was a Banker. But after that, I guess it's a bit of a greed. When success makes you a lot more greedy than what you are, and If God Was a Banker did very well. So once that became successful, I didn't want to give up that space. There was nobody writing about banking, nobody writing thrillers based in the world of banking and financial services from India. So I thought maybe that's a space which I get to own, and I started writing more and more in the same space. So it's actually one, the need to be remembered for posterity. 2, you get used to the success and you start writing, because in India, readers normally read authors and not books. Okay, so now once you create a name, you know that you have an audience to read. So you want to give them more. And 3, I guess, at some point in time, you get used to LitFest.
Ashwin, if you were not to market your books the way you do, by you I mean a lot of authors, do you think that your books would be just as successful without marketing them if you just wrote your book and gave it up?
It's possible. There are always the statistical outliers where books which have not been marketed turn out to be very successful. But those are in the minority. The vast majority of books which you see have been commercially successful are the ones where the author has got out there along with the publisher and ensured that his book sells. I would say that the 2 major factors which affect us in our country today in terms of making, for a new author, the biggest challenge is discoverability. How do you get discovered? You've written this book, you've spent 2 years doing it. It's got published. You think that now that's the end of the road. But how do you then get discovered by the reading public? So that is one big challenge. And assuming that you can overcome that challenge, then the two big challenges are visibility and availability. Very often you'll get onto an online platform and you'll find that your book is not to be found. Or you walk into a bookstore and you find that the book is not there. And I remember during my early days, 2007, 2008, when my first book had come out, I used to actually do rounds of the bookstores to find out as to whether my book was there or not. Because someone from my publishing outfit, who was an area sales manager, I asked him, I said, what do I need to do to make this book sell? And he said, आप एक ही चीज याद रखिए कि जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. So anyone walking into a store, unless it is visible, it's not going to sell, no matter how good the book may be. And I think those basic principles are very, very critical in terms of actually sort of getting out there and not being ashamed to say, like for example, how many authors will walk into a bookstore, meet the sales manager or meet the owner of the bookstore if it's a smaller bookstore, not part of a chain, and say, hey, listen, I'm XYZ and I would be really interested in knowing as to how my book is doing and what is it that I can do to help you. Now that is very critical and very important, at least during the early years. So to that extent, I would say that had I not put my entire might behind making my books work, I don't think they would have worked.
And I'm sure there's so much more to it than that. I mean, we had a quick survey with some bookshops yesterday, where we just asked a number of bookshops in Delhi that what are the kind of books that are selling the most. Some years ago, when we asked that question, they would at once say self-help books.
Yeah.
So today, some of them said fiction, some
Yeah.
said non-fiction. Everybody had different answers to about everything, except the fact when we asked them, are you getting more footfalls? Are people buying more books? Some of the bookshops said yes, they are, because the authors are taking a lot of interest. And but then again, it can't be just the author interest. It has to be, the book has to be very.
But actually, I have a small thing. When I wrote Asura, I was living in a small town. I was in Belgaum at that time, not moved to Mumbai. Frankly, I did not do any marketing. I had not visited any bookshops. As you said, it might be outlier because I just had the book and I did 500 copies was printed. A small publisher. At that time, I was a small publisher. 500 copies was printed in one bookstore. It was kept. I didn't even know what books. Now I know what bookstore it is. I didn't know even. I had not even seen Mumbai at that time. I had come once or twice and gone. My office and gone. So I had never visited any bookstore. After 6 months, I came to know in the crossword list in December that this book is a bestseller. Until then, even I was not aware.
That's amazing.
Huh?
That is really amazing.
You're very modest, Anand. The fact is that you are an outlier because you chose a subject which was very different from what was selling in the world. And over a period of time, probably your writing, your storytelling all came to the fore. But genuinely, if you look at all the authors who sell today in India, in 100% of the cases, maybe except you could pinpoint to the fact that the author has put himself out there and gone ahead and marketed his books. Now let's look at the biggies in the world. You look at Jeffrey Archer. Till 5 years back, Jeffrey Archer never did a cover reel. Okay, never went on Facebook saying, okay, new book announcement coming tomorrow.
And now I do all that.
Come online, etc. Even Jeffrey Archer does that today.
Now
Dan Brown releases a video 6 months before the book comes out. All these are marketing tools. Unless you really put your book out there, it will not sell. 1. 2. A book is something which the audience will not miss unless they know that something like this exists. So the first step is to get them to know that something like this exists or something like this is going to come out. If they have not heard of Private Delhi, they're not going to miss it. So if they're not going to miss it, they're not going to buy it and read it. So somewhere down the line, marketing a book, I'm probably standing out there and saying, guys, buy my book with a fair bit of conviction. Unless you do that, your book is not going to sell. You may get lucky, and your books might sell, but you need that huge luck factor for you to sell. If you don't do your book,
No, when the Bahubali came, there was a huge marketing push. That I agree. But the first book I am telling, the first book there was zero marketing. The people in the industry know that. Because I was not aware. Suddenly in the, what do you call it, the 2012, it came. 2012, during New Year they list, no? In that, all the list it was there, the book. Then only I come to know these releases.
No, that is amazing that without any marketing and without even being aware of it at that
Because
time.
Belgaum didn't have an English
Yeah,
bookstall at
yeah.
that time.
But
There was no
today-
English bookstall. I had not seen my book, believe me or not. I never seen my book in a bookshop.
But Anand,
Until 7 months, as the book had already sold 50,000-60,000 copies by that time. Then only I have seen the book in a bookshop when I came to Mumbai. So
but Bahubali has given you the kind of
Bahubali happened
push
5 years after that.
Now, but that must have given a new lease to your books again.
Before
All the
that also,
marketing
all other
Bahubali.
3 books have sold very well.
Yeah. Now, what do you think is going to happen to the field of retelling mythology now? It's getting so crowded. Everybody is jumping into that because of.
So we are
how
jumping out now.
successful
I am
the books
jumping
are.
out. I jumped to Bahubali. So when
No, like the heroes have been dealt with, the villains have been dealt with, the other characters have got the say. Him has also got its say. Everybody's really said what it had. What do you think will happen next? What else can anybody do with the retelling of mythology?
See, it is not because of people had not written about this that books didn't do well. Even before Amish had come, Ashwin had started, I had started, people were writing the books. And
They
even
market them properly. Market them.
they didn't market them perhaps. But so the books will keep coming. It's like romance, so many people are writing romance. That doesn't mean Chetan Bhagat or Ravindra Singh will stop writing romance or romance will stop selling. That always will be there. Because our mythology has so many characters, you can keep writing. There are 33 crore gods. So many characters are there.
But do you think, Ashwin, that kind of a reader interest will be retained in mythology, and for how long?
No, actually, think about it this way, that when we talk about the Ramayana, we talk about predominantly the Tulsi Ramayana. But if you look at the Valmiki Ramayana, it's exceptionally different to the Tulsi Ramayana. And frankly, if you look at it, then over the years, more than 300 versions emerged of the Ramayana. Which means, in other words, that what, let's say, Anand is doing or what Amish is doing are actually no different to what has been done over the ages, which is taking a different angle on the same story and telling it again. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Anand, but I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the Adbhut Ramayana in which Ravan actually does the yagh along with Ram before the battle takes place. As a learned Pandit, as a Vidwan, there is another version in which Sita manifests herself as Durga and then kills Ravan, not Ram. It's not Ram who does the final killing. So there are so many versions.
There is even a version where all these characters are Muslims.
That's
Mahapala
right.
Ramayana.
That's right.
Where Ram is a sultan and Dasharatha has 3 wives. It makes more sense
Or
there.
you have the Lao Ramayana in which he's a Bodhisattva. So I mean the point is that there have been multiple takes. So frankly what is happening today is an extension of that, Vinita. It's not something which is new.
So it can go on and on.
It can go on.
Correct.
We hope it will go on, I don't know.
Would you enumerate what does one look for in a short story? Because Right India is all about short stories. Why would you never attempt a short story? Would you ever do that?
For writing a short story is a very different art. I think people who write 300-page books will struggle to write short stories. There are very few people who made that transition and made that transition successfully. And the reason for that is when we write novels, we need that space. We need a space to create the plot, to create the characters, to build in some element of suspense, and then take it to a final climax. And without that space, we can't work. Whereas in a story, you need to have an art of starting from nowhere and ending at a particular point, after which you can just drop the story. And somehow, authors like me, when we write short stories, we feel very incomplete. Whereas I was reading Telltale on the flight, and the first story in Telltale is a story of 100 words by Jeffrey Archer. 100 words. Now come on, you know I can't write anything in 100 words. So, as an author of short stories, you need to have that ability to, one, start from an indefinite, from a point which is at some stage in the middle of a story, and then assume that the reader will figure out what's happening around that point in time, and then take it to a climax wherein you tie all the loose ends. So you ask a question in the beginning, take it through to the end, and then have a climax in the end where you tie in all the loose ends, and leave a lot of things to the reader's interpretation, but not entirely, write about it. That is an art. I don't think I can do it. I'm not sure about the gentleman here, but it's something which a lot of Write India participants have shown that they're capable of. You get 3,000, 4,000 stories for every author, and I think hats off to the Indian population. It's sad that the publishers today don't really focus on short stories the way they should. And to that extent, I think you guys are doing a great job of bringing out those stories in books for readers to read. But I just hope that things change, because reading a short story is, the way people read today. Read when they go to sleep, read when they are actually on bed. You want to finish a story and then go to sleep. And short stories are brilliant. You just finish it off, and ends on a high, and then you just close the book and go to sleep. It's so conducive to reading while you're traveling. It's so conducive to the short time attention spans which most of the readers have today. But yet I don't know why publishers are not giving it the due. Maybe they're not enough. I think short stories also need
short stories. Sorry to interrupt. Short stories do come in language. I write short stories in Malayalam. Where in the magazines where there is space, English magazines don't give space for fiction. That's why we are not, except perhaps Women's Era or something. I don't think any magazine gives space for fiction. In regional languages it is there. I write a lot of short stories in Malayalam. I have written in Kindle also for...
No, they do. But for example, Feminadas, for example, a lot of these men's magazines also have short stories. But
not the way suppose say like a magazine like India Today, not the way the mainstream, it's a specialized niche magazine.
Yeah.
Like in Malayalam, Madhubhumi does it.
Yes, but for an author to get recognized and publish short stories, you need the book to be sold in stores. You need some commercial success who becomes a giant. Today Indian authors made it big because of, let's face it, because of Chetan Bhagat. He had a big role to play. Similarly, we need a Chetan Bhagat moment in short stories as well. You walk into a bookstore, ask for short stories, they'll pick out Jeffrey Archer or Ashwin and give you. Nobody else. Because there are enough other authors who write short stories and have books in the stores.
They should give you the Write India short stories.
I think somewhere, the short story process is bastardized in India. And I'll tell you why. A lot of people who want to just come out with books today approach 20 different authors. They say, "Yeah, make a short story de de." Okay? Collect 20 short stories from 20 different people, publish an anthology, and make it a commercial venture rather than fine-tuning the craft of writing short stories. I think that has kind of messed up a lot of things in the short story world today. Because people pick up short stories, they find rubbish short stories there. They pick up anthologies, they find rubbish short stories there. Except for the anthology, which is it's something which has come out of a lot of hard work, sweat and toil of Write India, Times of India and the authors. So I think something needs to change there before short stories.
I just feel it in the air. I see a lot of people reading short stories, and because people don't have so much time, they want short reads. I really feel that short stories are on their way up. And publishers at the moment may not agree, but there are anthologies which are coming out, and the fact that they are out means people are reading them. And the fact that we get thousands and thousands of entries for Write India, and people write perfectly good short stories there. So there is that interest definitely. So possibly, like you said, you need a Chetan Bhagat of short stories.
There is a talent, they need exposure.
And hopefully Write India will be the Chetan Bhagat of short stories, and we'll be able to give it that push. When the short stories were coming in and we were, during the process of judging the winners, Ashwin gave me some very interesting tips on, what a short story should have. If you remember that, Ashwin, I would love you to repeat it for the Right India participants.
Actually, it was barely a set of tips. You had sent me a set of stories that I needed to evaluate, and I was thinking to myself that ultimately, what is it that I am looking for? And frankly, I have found that there is at times too much of focus on the words. But ultimately, what is a short story? It is a story. So it's all about whether that story engages me or it doesn't engage me. And there were some stories which instantly sort of like within the first one paragraph, you were hooked. I always love saying that a good story should be almost like a pothole in Mumbai, where once you fall in, you can't get out. So, can you do that? Can you grip the person to the point where they want to complete the entire story? And let me tell you, I agree with Ravi in terms of the fact that it requires a huge amount of effort. It's like, for example, the outcry that happened when Twitter went from 140 characters to 280. It's far more difficult to compose your tweet 140 characters. So it means that I can't remember which was the great author who said, I'm sorry that my letter isn't shorter, but I didn't have enough time. Which means that you have to put in 10 times the work in terms of being able to get the essence of that story to be conveyed in much less words. And there were some of your contestants who did that incredibly. I would say that it is, Right India is an eye-opener in that sense. That the ones who have actually ended up as winners or runners-up are people who have excelled themselves in terms of doing this. But coming back to what is it that you're looking for? I mean, the stuff that, whether it is in terms of your language or whether it's in terms of your grammar and whether it's in terms of the structure, those become very easy to overlook if you can make out that, listen, the narrative of this story, the characters, the plot, it just engaged me and I was hooked. Then I'm willing to overlook everything else.
So that helped us a lot really when you gave us all that feedback from the stories you read. I think Anand, you are the only one amongst all three of you who's written for print, who's written for television, and who's also writing for Bollywood. So what is the difference between the three kinds of writing?
Bollywood come out, but TV I have written a lot. TV itself, there is a difference between writing for Netflix. Bahubali, I'm writing for Netflix. So writing for Netflix, writing for GEC, General Entertainment Television, writing novel, writing stories, all are different. I write short stories in Malayalam. Writing in Malayalam also is different compared to even the structure, the way you write. TV, I write for greed. TV pays a lot.
You're so also happy to say they are greedy.
No, I am, in fact, my next book in non-fiction, apart from Bahubali's second book, is Asura Way of Life, where I am giving a self-help book, where I am proving through mythological stories that why greed is a good emotion, why you should be jealous, why you should tell lies. So I am trying to teach you to become more like Ravan. So I subscribe to, not that I am lying here, but I subscribe to all these things. So TV, what happens is TV you are writing for the lowest common denominator, because how many people watch TV? Netflix, it's a different ball game. Netflix is one level, you have to insert your series. Many rewrites I have to do. Right? But for general entertainment television, which I have written Siya Keram, I have written Ashoka, I have written even a few episodes in your genre thriller Adalat. TV, the book I didn't have the courage to do that, so I wrote it in TV. Adalat, and then I have written Hanuman, and then something is coming in Discovery, which is in a different genre again compared to that. In January 26, it's getting launched. TV, as I said, it is about lowest common denominator. So what happens is, Now they say you are writing for maid. I'm not being very snobbish here, but it's a fact. We are writing for maid, ayah, and butler, okay, drivers in television, because they are the people who are giving us money. They are the people. So it is all on Thursday. The TRP will come. So based on that, your story keeps changing. Every Thursday the TRP comes, and the TRP may change just because the heroine has worn a different sari, but that will not know.
Is that not very frustrating for the writer then?
It is very frustrating for the writer until the check comes.
I know some authors who've actually withdrawn from television writing because of this.
Anand is very nice and is a gentleman. But I'll tell you what he told me one day. He said, Ravi, if you write for television, just keep your ego outside and then walk into the room. Authors are treated like shit in the world of television. So, if you want to keep your ego aside, go ahead and write. But the money is fabulous. And I think Anand walked out of a couple of serials only because of that.
I walked out not because of. I walked out because see, there is a limit up to which you can write. See, if I demonstrate it, who is watching television? There is a sense in what I am telling. It is not like book. If they are reading, I can grip. I hope so. I can grip the reader and they can read the book. They read at their own time. Here at television at 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock prime time, the show is going on. Mostly the husband will be coming after his work at that time, and then the lady of the house, she will be making the food. So what happens is she is not even seeing the television. She is in this typical Indian television. She is hearing the television. So what happens? We have to repeat the dialogue again and again. It's good for us because we have to write only this much, you get your check. But you have to repeat the dialogue. So usually it is mother-in-law coming to even Siakaram, they try to do that.
I was just saying, Ashwin has not done any television scripting, and maybe he doesn't need that
Let
check,
me
of course,
complete
because
this.
he has
Sorry,
his own
let
business.
me complete this because it's a good experience. That's why. How I write, in case somebody wants to write, in case I am moved into production also, I found more money there. Maybe I might take some writers as
Right India winners of Right India contest.
not big writers like you. Ego.
He just said money is good, so.
So here it is like this. So you will say, mother-in-law says to daughter-in-law, you said this what? Then she will repeat that. Then daughter-in-law will repeat the same dialogue. No, may I say India. She will tell that. Then what happens? The father-in-law walks in. He tells the same dialogue. So that you will not miss. The lady in the kitchen will not miss the dialogue. So this is how you write. And when I sit to write short stories, it is like writing poetry. So shifting, it is like you should have 10 heads like Ravan with 10 different moods. Write that. Please, sir.
But tell me something, you write in English, right, when you give it to them, and then they translate it into Hindi. So do you even understand it when it comes back to you?
I can understand Hindi very well. It's not a problem. I can.
Possibly can't understand what they've changed it into.
No, that definitely. I never watch my serials, what I write. Let me be very honest. I don't watch. I cannot stand it. So many serials I don't keep my name also. Really. So what happens? Because in case sometimes my wife will say, which idiot is writing? I cannot say I am writing. I cannot tell my kids also. But money is good. So
I'm just trying to count number of times Anand said money is good. I think it was a little over 6.
No, 13
13 steps.
steps.
13 bloody steps to making money.
This is the 14th and 15th one.
Ashwin, tell us why you don't need to make that extra money.
No, it's not about need. Usually it tends to be about greed. And I have found that most of it has been taken care of through my books. The other part of it is that I don't see myself ever writing originally for TV. I can see my books getting adapted into movie screenplays or in terms of digital series. But I don't see that as something where I would sit down like Anand and actually do something absolutely original
Why is
for
that?
TV.
Why?
I guess it's like what Ravi was talking about, that you either think like a short story writer, or otherwise you think like a novelist. The two are very different. I think for me at least, the journey of spending, let's say, a year or 2 years in terms of living with that story, researching it, plotting it, then eventually ending up writing it. For me, that's part of that entire enjoyment process, as it were. In fact, I feel depressed by the time that I actually finish the book, because I know that that story is now over, at least as far as my enjoyment of the nuances of that story are concerned. Even when right now, currently 3 of my books are at various stages of being adapted. But I have been very clear that, look, don't involve me in the adaptation. The reason being because we as writers love what we have done. We've loved our books. So the moment you start getting involved in that, the chances are that you will want to translate the book into a medium where you will, take for example a book like, let's say, The Godfather. I don't think it was ever a great book, but by the time it became a movie, it had taken on a new life. Or you take the reverse, a Da Vinci Code, which was a brilliant book, never became a great movie. So I think the two mediums are exceptionally different. And so to that extent, it's better to stick to your knitting, do what you know best. Of course, there are lucky ones like Anand who can seamlessly make the transition from one to the other.
But the only point I have, Anand, is, and the reason why maybe Ashwin doesn't write, and I will never write for television, is one, opportunity has not come. Okay, one is that. So, but even if the opportunity comes, I think fundamentally, writing something just for the sake of money and letting go of your creative instinct and taking the story to the level or the direction that you want to, and not being able to do that in television is something which fundamentally is not acceptable to somebody.
Are you
like
saying
me.
Anand is not creative with TV?
No, I'm not saying that.
Sorry.
Repeating a
I'm-
dialogue 5 times is
this
not
is what
creativity.
it came across as.
Repeating
So
a
I'm just
dialogue.
I'm trying to clarify
You're playing my role here.
I was just going to say that's the role Ravi normally plays.
So repeating a
Ravi
dialogue.
don't want
No,
to
Maybe
get-
I will.
let me complete.
I would not take
Let
this
me-
if I
let-
were you.
I'm going to give it back.
No, let me complete.
Okay, wait. I think I should.
I just have the point to make is
We will
one-
meet after this.
Yeah.
You don't stand a chance against Ravan.
Yeah, I don't have a chance against Ravi for sure. But having said that, I think the point is that when you write for television, clearly it's not your story eventually. Your Netflix is a different story. Netflix, great, because you're adapting a particular story into
No,
into
Netflix,
serial-
I am adapting my own
But
book.
And the fact is, Vinita, the money is the producers. Okay, so eventually you will have to tag his line. You have to go down what he tells you to do. So essentially, it's your creativity which kind of gets shelved. And television is a medium where authors don't get any visibility, any presence, any forum where they're not even known by their work. And that's why when we write for self-esteem, for us, for me particularly, putting my name out of the book, having it as my story is a lot more critical, and the last say on that story has to be mine. I think that's more critical for me than the money and self-esteem, because that we get from our day jobs and from the books that we write.
Ravi, let me answer this. Just a minute.
Question, it's my opinion.
So let me tell my opinion. See, it is like this. It is not that I am stopping writing books. Apart from that, I write in Malayalam also, which nobody here might not have read or known. Perhaps I hope. Nobody. I am writing for drama. I am experimenting with various things. Like I am writing drama which Kerala Sanghi Academy is taking. That's in Malayalam with the top actors. For a stage play I am writing. I am experimenting whether I can do a stage play. I am experimenting whether I can do a TV, whether I can write for Netflix. So it's an experiment which...
It is amazing that you are able
and
to...
English short story, I come up with English short story in Shanta and Bhumija and Kindle.
Things, yes.
No, not taking
I
anything
think
away from you.
Ravi didn't mean anything like that. He
Mine
just
was
meant
only
he can't
restricted
do
to
it.
television.
He's feeling that because he can't do it. One question I want to ask all of you before we throw the floor open to questions. I want to ask you, see, all three of you, you had your business, you worked with IOC, you worked as a banker. Well, lives of somewhat anonymity. From anonymity to celebrity, and suddenly you guys are known, everybody knows your faces, girls are throwing themselves at you. How do you deal with it?
I hope nobody will. Come on.
Vinita, which world are we living in?
Well, you
I
possibly
tell
wish
you,
for
all
more.
you need is one event to bring you down on earth. I'll tell you a very interesting incident that happened to me. It was at Jaipur airport. I was in the bookstore. Just as you enter through security, there's a bookstore up in front. So I was browsing. This gentleman comes up to me and he says, "Sir, could I get a selfie with you?" So, for a minute, you're sort of 2 inches off the ground because you're like, I'm someone. So the selfie gets taken. Then he says, "Sir, I'd like you to sign one of your books for me." So I said, "Sure." So he goes to the bookstore guy. He picks up a book and he brings it to me for signature, and it's by Devdutt Patnaik. And so I said, "You want me to sign a Devdutt? You're Devdutt only." No. So in that 2 minutes, I was not on the ground, I was underground. So the point is, it's always a good thing to not take yourself too seriously. Just maintain. I have always believed that every word that all of us write on paper, those words are Saraswati Devi ka den. It is a blessing. So it is not your words. It's coming from somewhere else. So the moment your feet are on the ground, that will continue flowing. At some point of time, if you float off the ground, those words will stop.
That's amazing.
Many times I love to tell people, see, I have a cover like this. I have written this book. Please recognize me.
But after Bahubali and Rise of Sivagami, how do you deal with it? Do people recognize? I saw people stopping you on the way for selfies.
In LitFest, even in LitFest, if people don't recognize, where will they recognize?
Ravi, what about you?
Well, I think,
You can't lie because I know everything.
but I think the problem is that authors have started thinking of themselves as celebrities. And despite all the humor, I think that's a problem with a lot of commercial fiction writers and even literary fiction writers in India. The day an author starts calling his readers as fans, I think that's the end of the author. And I suddenly find a lot of authors these days saying, "Oh my God, he's a fan, he's now with my books, he's a great fan of mine, he keeps writing me mails." I think that's all rubbish. Authors have good, appreciative readers, that's it. They are fans of your writing, not you. Learn to make that differentiation. The day you forget to make that differentiation is the day when you will actually be swept away. And trust me, I can see that happening to a lot of my author friends in this community. And if that does not change, you start paying for it in your personal life and your professional life. Because the way you behave in the market, the way you behave in LitFest, for example, and the way you behave in front of readers, you start thinking that you're God, that you're bigger than life. And you take that same attitude home. And when that same attitude takes you home, when you take that same attitude home and start behaving the same way with your family, I think things just go haywire.